G'day, hi, and welcome. Just off to get my provisions. So like I was saying, like to the commenter, like, you know, like I'd regret my, he goes, ah, you're gonna regret your purchase because the 500i is not, you know, it's a light saw. Like everybody hears that it's a light saw, but it's not. Go pick one up and then go pick up the 400 right beside it. You know, with your eyes closed, you could tell right away how heavy that saw is. And okay, when it's in the wood, it's a different animal. You know, all saws are. But like yesterday, I felt like I was cutting with my 260. Like, yeah, it's slightly heavier, but like you would have to go back and forth between the 260, or I guess now the 261. Say, oh yeah, that's definitely lighter. Like it's right, like 16 and a half pounds is like, well, for me, maybe your mileage might vary. Is like a real sweet spot where it's heavy enough to fall through the wood. And if you watch how I'm cutting, like, and again, guys, I'm going easy on the saw. Like, I mean, I'm revving it to where it's got a rev, but as soon as it feels like it's going to bind up a bit, I let off the trigger, right? Because I'm breaking it in. I'm gonna be babying this thing probably for the next, you know, a little while. But like this thing spools up pretty fast, right? So it's a fast cutter like the 500. Where it's a high revving saw, you know, when it's cutting more, where like say you take a 272 or some of the other saws where they're more, you get more low end torque, it's more low revving, right? Strangely enough, the 162 is like that, where it operates almost like a big saw, where you get your power more down low than you in the mid range than you do up at the top end. Where the 400, you get it's like the 260 and the 500i, where the power's in the mid range to the top end. Right, so it's just a different animal. So like with the 400, I think the trick with it's going to be keep the revs up. But when you're limbing, high revving saws are awesome for limbing because you just touch the branch and it's gone. You know what I mean? Just nick, 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 nick. You never have to wait for it, right? And of course, with that magnesium piston, it spools up pretty fast. Like that's one thing I noticed. It was a very quick response, no lag. But again, new saw, we'll see how it does. You know, once it's, you know, kind of broken in. Like I wouldn't say it's broken in yet by any stretch of the imagination. You know, got a ways to go. When your saw is broken in, it's just kind of like you kind of notice it. It feels like that saw feels like a broken in saw because it's so smooth. But if that's where I'm starting, that thing's going to get even smoother. I need gas. Holy smokes, I really need gas today. So no, what I'm saying is that no, that saw is a good choice for me. Now, am I ever going to get a bigger saw? Yes, but the 500i probably isn't going to be it, because for $100 less, you can get a 661, which, yes, that's a really heavy saw, but you do big things with big saws, like that 500i or that 400, like there's not a tree on the planet it can't cut down. It's just, it might not be ideal for big, heavy trees. You know, it will do it. You know what I mean? It will do it. It just will do it slower. That's all. But the average tree that you know, like people fantasize about the monster trees. You rarely cut monster trees. Okay, I started off with big roundels yesterday, but that's not the average size tree I cut. Like, you know, I cut, you know, trees that are going to, like I say, the steering wheel are smaller most of the time. The 400 is perfect for that. And I think a 28-inch bar bucking on this when it's on the ground would be just fine. I'll have to try it because I know you lose power going from a 20 to a 28. Yes, you're going to lose a lot of power, but it probably cut like the 261. It'll probably be that cutting power, which is still lots. You know, it just, okay, you got to, you know, just not bog the saw down. That's all. Just keep the RPM up, as long as your chain's sharp. But I'm going to buy a 28-inch bar more for limbing. And I'll probably buy the, like I'm probably more likely to use a 16-inch bar. And the 20-inch bar I think is perfect. I could get an 18 as well, but like the 18 is probably the best bar for that saw. But you can get away with the 20 without any problems. So, you know, if you want a little more snap and stuff like that, but you still want a longer bar, the 18, you know, will be easy to maneuver in the thick stuff, right? Everybody has their preference. I get that. Like, for example, when you're doing stove wood and the logs are piled on top of each other, I do tend to prefer like a shorter bar because you can get into places a lot easier. Once the wood's kind of spread out, the logs are kind of spread out a bit, then you tend to like the longer bar because you can stand up more. You know what I mean? But when you're kind of on the pile, it seems like the shorter bars are the way to go. You know, it just in my experience. Again, everybody's different, but no, I'm not going to regret the purchase of this saw. I think I picked the right saw. Like this feels like it already feels like a go-to saw, kind of like how the 260 was. Even though that was the only saw I had for a while, and then once I got some of the other little saws, you know, by that time my 260 was kind of worn out. But I know that for 90% of the time I would grab the 260. For this, I don't even know if I'm going to buy a 261. If I keep using it and I find that it's light enough, and I use it like say for a whole day, and I just like, okay, yeah, it's not really bugging me at all. Why buy a lighter saw, right? You know, the like the lightweight saws are when I'm climbing trees and stuff like that. That's why I like the lightweight saws. I don't like for example the 250. I didn't cut anything with it. I should probably should have tried it, but I just ran it up. It's not my saw. I don't like to play around with them. The 250 would be a good saw for somebody that wants to do yard work, but it's not a great saw for somebody that's got to scoot up a tree. It's a little bit actually too heavy because you got to hold it out here sometimes, right? And the 162, you can hold it out here all day and it doesn't hurt you and it doesn't throw you off balance or anything like that. The 170, that's what I loved about it. It was so light. You can almost use it one-handed. Now, I know if you're getting right into the climbing, you get a top handle saw, and that's really the ideal, right? Because then you can use them one-handed. But you get the idea. Anyway, I'm going to go get my provisions and then we'll discuss more. But no, I'm not going to regret this purchase at all. I mean, I was dreaming about my saw last night. I was like, oh, I had so much fun with it yesterday for the short amount of time I got to use it. You know, no, that saw, and you're going to hear from a lot of 400 guys how much they love that saw, especially when they're coming down from a bigger saw. That, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, I love the big saw when I need the big saw. But like, for example, if I just did a 3-saw setup, I'd have the 162, which I have, the 400, and then the 661. You know, if you're going to go big. You know, say, oh yeah, but that saw is like, it's 25, you know, 22 to 25 pounds, depending on the bar. Yeah, you're right. That is a big, heavy saw, but that's for the big, heavy stuff. You use it once in a while. You know, put the tree down, block it maybe for the first 20 feet, and then grab the 400 after that. And then after that, grab something lighter. But yeah, if you can always grab for a lighter saw, grab for a lighter saw. You might not notice it now, but you notice it over time. You know, you work a year in the bush, regardless of how strong you are, you work a year in the bush, you already start to notice repetitive injuries from your elbows, your shoulders, stuff like that. You start, first it starts off, you're just a little bit sore, and then a couple of days later, you're fine. And then before you know it, you're sore all the time, like me. You know, that's why I'm telling you what I'm telling you. Anyway.